Okay, get ready, because today we are going deep on something pretty heavy.
Yeah,
He
definitely
sent us this album, and
intense.
it's intense, yeah.
Yeah.
It's called AI Gen, The Man Who Wasn't, a soundtrack for the forgotten by a group called TATANKA.
Oh yeah, Tatanka.
And it's about a man, like, literally fading from existence, like, forgotten by everyone.
It's like what happens when you're just forgotten.
By the world, yeah.
And it really makes you think about how different cultures might see memory and even the afterlife differently.
Oh, totally.
Like Tatanka, they're all about mixing AI with like global indigenous wisdom, which is super interesting. Right?
Yeah, yeah, it really adds, like, another whole layer to this.
Definitely.
But let's start with the music itself.
Okay, sounds good.
The first track, Fading Ink, it's like, it sets up this really eerie vibe, kind of like watching someone disappear, but in slow motion.
Exactly. And we meet 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧, the guy this is all about. He starts noticing little things, like people not remembering his name or just not even seeing him.
Yeah, it's that feeling of, like, being invisible, like blending in too much.
Blending in, yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think we've all felt that at some point.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you're just not being seen or heard.
Mm.
There's a scene in a coffee shop, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The barista, she she doesn't remember him, and then she, like, totally misspells his name on the cup.
Oh, I remember that part.
It's such a small thing, but for him, it just, like, triggers this, like, existential dread.
It's like if they can't even get your name right,
Yeah.
who are you?
Right, and the lyrics, they really get that across.
Really do.
Like, Alec or Alaric, does it even matter? A shadow in the corner, like a fleeting chatter.
It's like his identity is dissolving,
Mhm.
fading away like ink on a page.
Exactly, and that feeling just gets stronger in the next track, the dimming light.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just people forgetting him now, it's like reality itself is starting to ignore him.
It is, right. People tell stories he was part of, but he's like completely missing from their versions,
It's like he's being erased.
from his own life. Yeah.
And then there's this one line, it's like, I stand beneath a street lamp's glow, but my shadow won't follow where I go.
Ugh. Yeah, that line always gets
I mean,
me.
it's so creepy. Like, even light is acting strange around him.
It's like the physical world itself is forgetting him, too.
Right, and it makes you think, like, if our physical presence fades, does our impact on the world just disappear with it?
That's a good question.
Makes you think. Then things get, like, really weird in Glass Skin.
Oh, yeah.
You go from just subtle forgetting to, like, mind-bending stuff.
Yeah, this is where it gets really existential.
Right, this reflection, it becomes translucent, like see-through.
His skin's like glass.
Yeah, he can see, like, the bathroom tiles through his own hand.
It's a pretty disturbing image, but it really makes you think about, like, what defines us.
Like, what even makes us us?
Yeah, exactly.
If our bodies can just, like, fade away like that,
Right.
is there something more, something deeper?
Mhm.
And the unheld hand adds even more to that.
Oh, yeah.
This is where Alaric, like, can't even touch anything anymore.
He tries to pick things up, but his hand goes right through them.
He even walks through someone on the street.
It's like he's becoming a ghost, like a phantom in his own life.
Yeah, and the lyrics capture that feeling so well, like
Oh, yeah.
the unheld hand slipping through the seams, a life without touch, lost in the dreams. Like,
Mhm.
if touch is how we experience the world,
How we connect.
what happens when we lose that?
What are we left with?
And then, just when you think it can't get any more isolating, we get the unheard scream.
Oh, man, that one.
Alaric loses his voice.
Completely.
Totally. Like, he can't make a sound.
I mean, we've all felt unheard at some point, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But to, like, literally lose your voice, to scream and have nothing come out.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It's like that primal fear of being completely alone, unable to connect with anyone.
And there's this line that, like, sums it up perfectly.
What is it?
The world keeps turning, but I'm left behind. A silent whisper in a world so blind.
It's like he's not just disappearing physically, but from people's minds, too.
Yeah, like they just don't even notice he's there.
And, it makes you realize how important communication is.
Totally.
Our ability to, like, share our thoughts and experiences, that's what connects us.
To each other and to the world, yeah.
Exactly.
And that whole theme of erasure, it just keeps going in the unwritten name.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
But this time it's like his entire history being wiped
It's
clean.
more than just forgetting.
Yeah, like his signature fades, his name disappears from emails, photos, even his yearbook.
It's like someone systematically deleting his existence.
And that's, like, especially scary in our digital world, right?
Totally. We leave so much of ourselves online now.
Yeah, what happens when those traces are gone? Is there anything left to prove we were even here?
That's a question the song asks directly. Where's the proof I was here? The records fade, the past unclear.
It makes you think about how much of our identity is tied to, like, these external things, you know?
It really does.
Okay, get ready for this one because the Forgotten Room is where things get really heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
Ulrich goes back to his apartment, and it's like he never even lived there.
It's about the loss of place, of belonging.
Yeah, the doorman doesn't recognize him. The building manager has no record of him. It's like his home just forgot him completely.
Completely.
And those lyrics, all the walls are silent, all the floors are cold. Where did I go when my name grew old?
That's so haunting.
It's this feeling of, like, complete displacement, you know? Like,
Yeah.
being totally unmoored from everything familiar.
I get that.
Yeah, and it really shows how important a sense of belonging is to who we are.
Totally. Like, when even our home forgets us, where do we go?
Right.
What grounds us?
Okay, then it gets even more surreal in the weight of nothing.
Oh, man, this is where Elric starts losing weight, right?
Yeah, like physically losing weight.
Like, it disappearing even more.
He feels like he's floating, and he even puts his hand through a mirror.
It's like he's losing his physicality.
Yeah, and he describes it as weightless in the world, but it's not what it seems, drifting like smoke through the echoes of dreams.
It's a pretty powerful image.
It is, but it also makes you wonder, like, what actually defines us? Is it our body, our memories, our relationships? What happens when those things start to fade?
Big questions.
Big questions, right. And it seems like the album is suggesting that maybe, just maybe, there's something more to us than just the physical stuff.
I think so.
Like something that persists even when our bodies and memories start to, like, deteriorate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fascinating idea, for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, hold on tight, because we're heading into some even more unsettling territory with the wind that walks.
Oh, yeah.
Alaric's transformation, it gets even stranger.
How so?
He's less of a person now and more like a distortion in the air, like an unsettling presence that people can barely sense.
As we can't really interact with the world anymore.
Not really, but there's this, like, lingering feeling that something is off.
Like a chill down your spine.
Yeah, exactly. And the lyrics, they paint this really creepy picture. I'm the wind that walks, but no one can hear. A presence that lingers, but never draws near.
Oh, that's so good.
Right. It's this weird mix of presence and absence. Like, he's there, but not really.
Yeah, I get that.
It makes you think about the boundaries between the seen and unseen world, you know?
Like, are there things we just can't perceive?
Exactly. Like, is there a part of us that exists beyond our physical form, and what happens to that when we die?
Those are questions people have been asking forever.
Right. And I think this album, with its mix of, like, AI and global indigenous wisdom, offers a really unique perspective on that.
It does.
Okay, brace yourself, because we're about to enter the most disturbing part of Alaric's journey.
Okay, what's next?
The Mind Unmade.
Oh, that's a heavy title.
It is, because this is where Alaric starts to lose his internal self, his memories, even his thoughts.
So his mind is, like, literally falling apart.
Yeah, he can't remember basic things. It's the ultimate loss of self, happening internally, alongside all the external forgetting we've seen so far.
So it's like double the forgetting.
Exactly, and there's this one line, it just gives me chills every time I hear it.
What is it?
Who am I now, if I've lost all I've known? A memory fading, a mind overthrown.
Ugh, that's rough.
Right. It's terrifying to think about losing the very core of who you are, all the memories and experiences that make you, you.
It challenges everything we think we know about what it means to be human.
Yeah, like, if our memories are what make us, what happens when those memories are gone? Are we still the same people?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a question with no easy answers. And this album, it's not trying to give us any, it's just like forcing us to confront the possibility that our sense of self is way more fragile than we want to believe.
It is, and it brings us back to that question of whether there's something more to us than just our physical bodies and our memories.
Yeah, if those things can be erased, what's left?
That's the big mystery, isn't it?
It is, and it's a mystery I'm definitely still wrestling with. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's take a look at the next track.
Okay, I'm ready.
So we're getting to, like, the peak of Elric's journey with The Last Trace.
Oh, yeah.
And at this point, he's barely there, just a flicker.
Like a whisper at the edge of, being noticed at all.
Right. And the lyrics have this, like, heartbreaking finality to them.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm nothing now, just a breath on the air, a fading echo, too faint to declare.
It's like he's admitting he's gone.
Yeah, and it raises this question that's been around forever, right?
What is that?
Like, if no one remembers us, if we don't leave a mark, did we even exist?
That's deep.
It is. And what makes a life matter if it just vanishes?
Big questions.
Huge. And it makes me think about, TATANKA, the people who made this, their whole thing about AI and global indigenous wisdom.
Right.
Maybe different cultures have totally different answers to that question.
That's a good point, yeah.
Right. Like some indigenous cultures believe in a spirit,
That lives on after death.
a soul that's separate from your body or what people remember.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe from that viewpoint, Alaric isn't really gone.
Even if the world forgot him.
Exactly. So the man who wasn't maybe isn't just about being forgotten.
But about different ways of, understanding what it means to exist.
Exactly. And then we hit the last track, Never Was, and whoa.
That one hits hard.
Dude, it's like a punch to the gut.
Mm.
It's where the album, delivers its knockout blow.
Tell me about it.
The world just keeps going, as if Alaric never was.
No trace of him.
Nothing, no gap, no one even notices.
Like he never existed.
And the song ends with this one line, but it's chilling, man.
I'm listening.
He never was. His whole story, everything just wiped clean.
It's a heavy ending.
It is. And it makes you realize how fragile, our existence really is.
How easily we could just disappear.
Right. And it makes you think about what we leave behind.
Not just stuff, but
Yeah, not just things, but our impact on other people.
what they'll remember about us.
The stories they'll tell.
That's what matters.
Totally. And maybe that's the key to finding meaning, even though we know we'll be forgotten someday.
To focus on, the small ways we affect each other.
Yeah, the connections, the good times, the bad times, those are the things that matter.
Because even if the world forgets, those memories stay with people.
Mm-hmm. And they become part of their story.
Exactly, like threads connecting us all.
Dude, this deep dive has been a whirlwind.
Intense.
Full roller coaster. We went from existential dread to, some real hope, and I'm still processing it all.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but that's what good art does, right?
Yeah.
Especially art that asks these deep questions.
About life, about who we are.
Yeah. And speaking of, I can't stop thinking about TATANKA and their whole AI and indigenous wisdom thing.
Yeah.
It feels like a key to unlocking, deeper levels in this album.
Totally adds another dimension.
Right. If we look at it from the perspective of cultures that have different ideas about memory and, what happens after we die,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Alaric's fate isn't as grim as it seems.
Maybe there's more to the story.
Yeah, maybe part of him lives on, a spirit or a soul, even though the world forgot him.
It's a comforting thought.
It is, and it makes me think that maybe the man who isn't just about forgetting.
But about transformation.
Right, even though the world doesn't remember him, his essence, his spirit, it lives on in the people who heard his story.
And in us, listening to it now.
Exactly. It's like we're keeping his memory alive, even though the album is about being forgotten.
It's a powerful idea.
It is, and it makes me think about how powerful storytelling is.
How it can outlive us.
Totally. So we've been wrestling with this question of what makes a life meaningful, right?
Yeah,
If we can be forgotten, what's the point?
it's a tough one.
It is, but I think this deep dive showed us that meaning isn't about being famous or remembered forever.
It's about the connections we make.
The love we give and receive.
And how we affect the people around us.
Even in small ways.
Those little things add up.
They do. It's those everyday acts of kindness, those moments we share. That's what leaves a mark.
And those marks, those memories, they spread out further than we can imagine.
Like ripples in a pond.
Exactly.
It's like that butterfly effect, right? A small action can have a huge impact, even if we never see it.
It's true, and maybe that's a good place to leave things,
Yeah.
with a message of hope and how connected we all are.
Even though the man who wasn't is about being forgotten, just listening to it, talking about it, that's remembering.
We're keeping his story alive.
And that shows how powerful human connection is.
It really does.
This deep dive has been amazing. I hope it's given you as much to think about as it has for me.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What stuck with you from Alaric's story? What will you remember? So, we've really gone through it with Alaric, right? And it's got me wondering, what really hits home for you about his whole deal?
It's funny. The album is all about him being forgotten, but it kind of makes me flip it and think about remembering things instead.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, memory isn't just holding on to the past.
Right.
It shapes who we are now and even, what we become.
And that makes me think about TATANKA again, the folks behind this whole thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Their whole deal with AI and indigenous wisdom, I keep coming back to that because it feels so, crucial to what the album's saying.
Totally. Lots of indigenous cultures, they get memory in this really deep way, not just personal stuff, but how it connects whole communities over generations.
So maybe instead of just like feeling sad about Ellerkel being forgotten, we can look at it like this album, this talk we're having, it's remembering him in a way.
Exactly. We're listening to his story, picking apart the lyrics, talking about it all, and that's keeping his memory alive.
Even though it's like the opposite of what the album is about.
It's like we're fighting against the whole idea just by being here, talking about it.
Total paradox, right?
Big time.
And it makes me think about how powerful stories are, how they can last longer than us, even outlive death.
Stories, that's how we figure out the world, connect with each other, and keep the past from vanishing.
So like Elric's story becomes part of our story.
Woven into like the big tapestry of all our memories.
I love that. But it still brings us back to that question, what makes a life have meaning? If we can be forgotten so easily, what's it all for?
I think going through all this with you has shown us. Meaning isn't about being some big shot or remembered forever.
Right.
It's the connections we make, the love we share, how we affect the people in our lives, even in small ways.
The little things add up.
Exactly. Those everyday moments of kindness, the happy and sad times we go through together, that's what really stays with people.
And those memories, they spread out further than we know.
Think about it. The people who've really touched your life, the ones whose stories are part of you now, they might not be here anymore, but the way you remember them, that's still shaping who you are.
That's really beautiful.
It is, and it makes that ending of The Man Who Wasn't, it doesn't feel like the end, more like a change.
Yeah.
The world might have forgotten Alaric, but his spirit, it's still alive in the people who heard his story.
And in us right now listening to it.
Totally. It's like we're keeping him alive, even though he's gone.
Powerful stuff.
It is.
Well, this has been a wild ride. I hope it's given you a lot to chew on, like it has for me.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What will you take away from The Man Who Wasn't? What will you choose to remember? How will those memories shape the way you live your life? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into memory, identity, and what it all means. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.